I believe we can see it. Okay, good. So this is on PPP Structure Investment for artisanal small-scale financing options in the optimization of Nigeria's mineral resources development, delivered on the second 2024 monthly Women in Mining Training Institute class. So I want to congratulate women in mining for even setting up the institute. It helps to bridge the gap in knowledge for practitioners. So that's the outline of what we have today. Basically, we are looking at how to finance this sector, and our remit is PPPs. So I'm going to talk more on what we do at the federal level. That's where our remit is, and how we can support. At the end of the slide, we have proposed way forward. I don't know what you have in place, but I believe I can just share my own perspective, and if it's found acceptable, we are willing to support women in mining. A little definition I had to go to look for it. Goes into mining sector to refer to the form of mining carried out by individuals or groups or families or even cooperatives. Some of them are labor intensive because they don't have mechanical support. They have low incomes, serious environmental impacts, and exposure to hazardous materials. You see some of them by the right, what they look like. I don't know where you are in Nigeria, but I remember I've once worked or stayed some time at New Busa, where they have Kainji Dam, when they were doing the concession of the Kainji and Jaba dams. On the road from New Busa to Bida, you will see some mining work going on there. And they are just like what we are describing this afternoon, artisanal mining. Even near New Busa, by the bridge, you will see people mining by the river there. The first time I was asking what was going on there, why is there, everybody's there, they're catching fish. They said, no, they are mining gold. So these are people who can be, say, unofficially employed by a mining company. Sometimes they work independently. They use their own resources. I had to go to Wikipedia to get this information for us. They include enterprises, individuals that employ workers for mining, using manually intensive methods, working with hand tools. I even saw where they were using this type of small generator they call I Pass My Neighbor. And they use it to light up the small ditches they've dug to see how they could go and be digging the ores there. And I found out that even a little, something like as small as your thumb, they say is very, very expensive when they finish the production process. So it could include mining activities such as panning of gold in rivers to other complex activities. I put some sketches here on how the process could go depending on what you want and the ore in question. I remember in the iron and steel industry, we have things like magnetite, we have ferrotite, we have hematite. Before you now pass them through the different processes, go through the blast furnace, and then you have the iron, the billet and all of them before you can even roll them out. We have them in different types, even in the one they have in Jos. So if it's full with, when you pass them through screening processes, you take them out and then they'll go to the waste pool. You go through this process, you pump with water, and when you get into a smelting furnace, the dross flows at the top. You can scoop them. When you see my CV, I've gone through manufacturing sector. I was also in the aluminum industry, where we could even get scraps, those things they sell on the road, scraps, and we pass them through furnaces so that we could manufacture roofing sheets. We could manufacture, what they say again, collapsible tubes. Some of them come with purified ore already. But some of the junk ones, like what they pick on the road, scraps, aluminum, they use them mainly for the roofing sheets you see. Then they pass them through corrugating mills and then cut them, and they look fine again because In the metal industry, nothing is lost. Another sketch of the process. In the gold scheme, we go through what we call the beneficiating process. I hope I'm correct with that. I remember that in my undergraduate years. So I'm not going to teach you because people are the experts here. Like I said, my expertise now is PPPs, but just trying to remember the languages we used in those days. So we look at some of the terms we have there to formalize them. When you formalize your process, get the economies into formal sector through legal, regulatory, and policy frameworks. So those ones I described in Niger State, I'm sure some of them they're not formalized, but I believe that women in mining can get formalized or already formalized. They have a process to which such laws and regulations are successfully activated, implemented, and enforced by relevant authorities. One of the key of them is the solid minerals industry, the ministry. I believe they have the NATI, they have others that regulate the sector. So we have formal artisanal scale miners that have requisite licenses and permits required by law, and they conform to regulations in addition to policies and management practices. Then there are the informal ones, those ones that use lanterns, those ones that are not registered by law. They don't have the requisite licenses, but through social and cultural norms, because the land is in the environment, they have this social license to operate for the local community. Some of them are basically illegal mining. And we know what's happening in some parts of Nigeria where, because of mining of ores, communities are being sacked. But we are hoping that an institution like WIM will set the things right. We see a picture of mining activity going on here, but just as in other sectors, just need to legalize what they do, just need to regularize what they do as well. And then they also need to obtain license, the legal license from the registered or the body empowered to issue licenses to do that. And then, so that those who are unlicensed and are into illegal operations, they will need to be put out of the business because they are messing up the system. In looking at financing the process, it's good to know that it requires solid understanding of the various financial instruments that are available, because significant roles that capital investments play cannot be overemphasized. We need to assess financial methods which align with both the risk and potential rewards of the mining projects. And the first of them is equity financing. Equity comes in terms of the shareholders of that business providing the necessary financing, or you have investors who provide capital to mining companies in exchange for ownership stakes. So whatever way it comes up, you see that it talks about ownership. The owners provide the resources, the financing that is needed to make the business work. So this form of financing is crucial for companies that do not yet generate revenue, or for those looking to expand operations without increasing their debt levels. Because you know that when you go to borrow, you must pay back with an interest, which brings us to debt financing. There are so many financing. You can go to commercial banks to borrow money, or they can go to finance houses. So many of them in Lagos and other parts of Nigeria, even in Abuja. But key thing is that you are prepaying with interest. And this interest comes over the period. So in these cases, miners can go and secure such loans using their assets or their resources, or even the project they're embarking on, which they expect to extract. So it is common choice for operations to looking for fund expansions, or even to procure needed and modern equipment to do the services they want. Another one is in terms of the royalties, streaming and royalty agreements. And this is another form of, or let's say, alternative mine financing. The investors provide upfront capital in exchange to what you produce in future. Royalties also, I'm sure we are hearing it a lot in the oil and gas industry. It can also be applied in this one. Then production-linked lending. It is the more you produce, that's the more capital you receive. and then joint ventures, where agreements can be put in place involving multiple partners who put their resources together. One, their strengths get increased, and they share the risks, and they also share the rewards, and then they spread the financial burden. By our definition and what we teach and practice, I also put in public-private partnerships, that's the PPPs. And I had to go and look at what somebody did in Zimbabwe, where there was an encouragement to government to look into PPPs involving private sector to get involved, because they come in with their expertise, they come in with private sector competencies, they come in with financing, they come in with technology, and these help to build a system, and you could get things done. There's nothing wrong in saying Nigeria, with our rich natural resources, cannot be a hub for manufacturing if we're able to get the mining sector running as they run in other countries. So PPP is a way to go. And because of the economic situation in Nigeria now, government is not having enough revenue to develop so many of the sectors they're involved in. We know that government has a right over all of them. They need private sector to come and make investments. And that's where we're going to spend most of our time this evening to look at. So this is the definition we have in Nigeria, and we use it to discuss and define PPPs. There could be other definitions you have. First of all, it has to be a contractual agreement. So there has to be a document showing that it's a contract in place, so that even if the parties that sign it quit the stage at some time, either due to age or whatever, that contract will still subsist. And it must take place between a government agency at the federal, local, or even state on one side and the private sector on the other side. So they bring their skills and assets. So in this case now, for mining, government who owns the land will bring the land, and the private sector will bring investment. So they share this to deliver the service or with their facility. So what are we getting here? We are looking at going to where we have the ores, where we have those bauxite, the hematite, the galena, dolomite. I'm trying to remember those things we did in our mining classes those days. So in addition to doing this, they share the risk. And when they have the rewards, they share them. So they combine, and that's the intention, the best capability of the public sector. In this case, it will likely be the Ministry of Solid Minerals on one side and the private sector for mutual benefit, so that that's revenue or resources that government doesn't have. The private sector will provide it, the services will be delivered, and will become the hub in mineral sector over here. So, but key things we need to know, and which is what we tell people at every point in time, there are so many things we hear about public-private partnerships. But in terms of defining it from the federal government angle, we say, one, it has to be an arrangement between public and private sector. So taking, for instance, if somebody like Alhaji Aliko Dangote and I don't know whether he's a chief, but we know Femi Otedola, if both of them are into mining, it's not the PPP, it's private. But if a government agency engages a private agent, then there's a PPP. Then that must be for provision of service. And this service must be for public benefit delivered by the private sector. And it will involve investment. And we know now that investment is key. They're investing technologies, they're investing managerial skills, they're investing competencies, they're investing even human resources in and on management of the public asset by the private partner. And if you remember the definition I gave in the previous slide, I talked about a contract. A contract will always have a beginning date and an end date. So it has to have a time period. It is not open-ended. And then we say both parties will share the risk. We saw that in the definition we gave for joint ventures and all of them. Then there's a standard. You just don't work and produce something. In fact, something about gold, if you go to market and they ask you, and they show you two forms and call them gold, and say this one is, let's say, 25,000 naira, and this other one is 60,000 naira. you believe me that you will go for the one of 60,000 because you believe that the quality and standard is higher, even though the other one is cheaper. And then in PPPs, the payments are linked to performance. So the private sector has to perform. They have to deliver the service they have agreed to deliver. And then this is the national policy of public-private partnerships as approved by the Federal Executive Council in 2009, given the key principles that govern PPPs in Nigeria. The first of one is that the first of them is that government and the people of Nigeria must derive value for money from that service. So if we are going to any site as federal government and engaging private sector, we must get value for money for Nigerians in the service, in terms of the cost, in terms of the risk, in terms of the service quality. And it must be in public interest, not because, let's say, Madam knows me before, we're going to give her we're going to sign a contract with her. And then the output specification that covers the requirement of the program, so that it has to be verifiable, has to be clear, everybody has to understand what is required. We don't want to go into iron business and end up with lead. We don't want to go into looking for platinum and end up with gold or bronze, something like that. Transparency is involved, and it depends on what you want. But because PPP is about public, there has to be transparency in it. And one of the things ICRC, where I work, champions is transparency. In one of the slides in the front, you will see that we are the first in the world to host a transparency portal for all PPP projects in Nigeria. And we talked about risk allocation on the basis that you allocate the risk to the party that is best able to manage them. So if the risk has to do with the land and you want to allocate the risk on the land, common sense dictates that government should bear that risk. But if the risk has to do with the machinery, the equipment, the resources, the technology, private sector is more able to manage that risk. And then the challenge, it depends on how the procurement comes up. But the law in Nigeria on public-private partnerships says that you must provide and procure the private sector through competition. I will talk further about this because some people have come looking for clauses in our law where they could get into direct negotiation. So there are some provisions in our law that allows direct negotiation where you don't need to go to competition, but that is on the basis that there's no other competent party that is qualified at the pre-qualification stage. And also in the case of national security issues, or in the case of proprietary technology, so that it doesn't exist anywhere in the world. For example, we know that General Electric manufacture turbines. So why go about looking for who to compete with them? Things like that, we can waive that, and it's allowed in the law. But if it's what every other person is doing, then competition must always come in. And then there's always due diligence. We ensure it is a requirement before we get the project certified to understand and know the capacity of the private sector to deliver. It becomes a business. Going to look for money from finance houses. The money that is sitting on the banks belong to investors. They are there to make profit. So the primary assignment of the bank is to protect the capital they have in their system. So before they lend it out for any project, they do a little of some of these calculations we have here, that the internal rate of return on that project must be greater than the average cost, what we call WACC, weighted average cost of capital, which includes the equity they're providing, the debt they are giving to you, and the interest on both of them. And then the return on equity must also be greater than what they expect as the shareholders. There's also a provision on regular basis of what we call debt service cover ratio. Any of these small equations here that is on the negative, the banks will not lend money. So when we are looking at financing in this sector, we look at making it in such a way that we say that the project is bankable. Bankable, that is able to attract private sector interest and financing interest. If we cannot attract financing interest, let's say we have this challenge of insecurity now. When investors look at the challenge of going there with all the issues of kidnapping and all, they may not go because what they're getting is not worth it. But there's a way government can provide adequate security. And the seeming project that is unviable becomes viable, not just in provision of security. Any other financing support by the government makes such projects very, very viable. So in looking at risk in projects, why we encourage partnerships is that if government does the arrangement alone, government bears all the risk. You can imagine in a business where government has to do the design, do the construction, do the technology, and provide the relevant one, do the operation and maintenance, finance it, market it, and provide demand risk for it, and any other form of risk. That's why most times the traditional form of procurement in government gets challenged, because government has to provide everything for them. But in public-private partnerships, you see that the government agency will now manage the risks they can competently and better manage, while the private sector will take things like technology, construction, operation, maintenance. So in mining sector, we look at the private sector providing the machinery, the technology, and everything we can give them as their own scope of work, while government will provide things like regulatory processes, approval processes, and all of them. I will leave this one, but we know that some risk must always be retained by government in a PPP, and some risk will be transferred to private sector in PPPs. And then these risks in some of them must be shared. Things like we have force majeure, archaeological findings, inflation. If you remember in Nigeria and the whole world, in 2019 and in 2018, the world was moving smoothly. By 2020, the world was shut down because of global pandemic called COVID-19. Now, nobody foresaw that previously. So when it comes into play, government must survey the project, and we say both parties will need to share the risk on things like that. So these are financially freestanding projects where you may not need government support or intervention. And we believe that the minerals, this sector can financially stand on its own without needing government support. But just to explain it in the context of PPP, there are other projects where government may provide support. And there are other projects as well where we do what we call viability gap support to make a project that ordinarily is not viable. But these are in the social infrastructure sector. Luckily, the mining sector has no challenge of such. I believe they can pay for themselves. So, Madam, in her interview I had when she was talking with Channels Television about leases. Leases are some forms of PPPs. We see service contracts, we see management contracts, we see leases. And leases can apply to this sector we are looking at today. A short term between running from 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. In PPP operations, we don't let leases go beyond 10 years because there are other forms of public-private partnerships. And we see things like concessions. We see build, operate, transfer, build, operate, own, transfer, build, transfer, own, design, build, operate, transfer, and you name them. So we can structure a PPP in the mining sector and look at either the lease or look at concession or whatever the financial model throws up for us. These are the key benefits of doing PPPs. I believe that getting together as a group will help us put resources together and get into public-private partnerships. So I wouldn't want to overflog this one. PPPs, and why do we have to have legal, regulatory, and institutional framework? Because without it, private sector will not invest in your system. So you need to give confidence that the investment are securitized in your country. You don't, an investor coming from outside Nigeria or even outside Africa wants to get a guarantee that when they invest in your country, their money will not be trapped. And the more you trap foreign investment in your country, the more you scare. Because we say cash is a coward. They go to where they are safe. So we try to make sure that the regulatory framework for PPPs are there in Nigeria, and we have them available through the institution of ICRC, because the law is in ICRC, the policy and other forms. So it gives the confidence to private sector, incentivizing them to invest in Nigeria. That's the ICRC Act, of which, Madam, we had the privilege of, Madam, being an esteemed board member and we look forward to still being in, how would I put it, always, whenever we call her, we should see her. So that's the primary legislation guiding PPPs in Nigeria, that any government agency can enter into PPPs, they can grant concessions, they can enter into contracts as long as they do it in line with our law. The same law established ICRC, the same law stated keenly that you must do a competitive bidding process. Interestingly, too, that law allows private sector to recover their investments. So we develop guidelines and others. When we start engaging with the team here, the women in mines, mining, I believe we will get more guidance for you to succeed. So we have what we call the greenfield and brownfield infrastructure. Greenfield being where nothing is existing already, and brownfield where something is existing and you are upgrading it, you are rehabilitating it, you are innovating it, and we provide such regulation as pre-contract. And once we sign a contract, then we take custody of the contract as required by law and provide what we call post-contract regulation. These are the functions of ICRC. I wouldn't want to be singing to the choir with Madam being here in the session. Okay. And then from the law, because everything cannot be written black and white in the law, we have the national policy also approved by the Executive Council in 2009, setting out government objective and commitments with regard to PPPs, providing the key principle of PPP in the Nigerian context, stating what government's role are to provide enabling environment for investment, and the processes in the PPP process life cycle. So what are the journeys of Nigeria so far in public-private partnerships? Madam, I'm sure you've been interested in this one, so I'm calling you out so much. Now, between 2010 and December 2023, the federal government of Nigeria, through the Federal Executive Council, with ICRC regulatory guidance, has approved 103 PPP projects worth over 20 trillion naira. So you can see that if this amount of projects had to be done through budgetary provision, it could have been a very big challenge. As of December 2023, there are 95 post-contract projects at different stages of implementation phase, meaning that they are currently successful. If you go to the website of ICRC, you will see them in different sectors. And probably after this discussion we are having today, we look forward that by next year, some of the projects in the mining sector should be part of what we have here, or in the next couple of years. Let me be a bit optimistic. As at December, because that's what we're using as our benchmark, the next benchmark will be in March, when we have crossed the first quarter of 2024. There are 152 pre-contract projects at different forms of development and procurement phases. Like I said in the previous one, I also look forward to projects from the mining sector being in this list. It's also available on ICRC website. And in 2015, ICRC received the award as the best PPP regulator in Africa. And with the support of the World Bank, we made Nigeria the first in the world to launch a globally accepted project disclosure portal in 2017. We have issued 199 outline business cases which confirm that the projects are viable and bankable to enable them procure to the stage of getting investors. And we have also issued 116 projects, full business case compliance certificates, all at December 2023. And the law allows us to gazette a pipeline of eligible PPP projects for the investing public. I also look forward to mining projects being in this list in the near future. Worth 22 billion. We are currently trying to publish the one for 2024. ICRC, like Precious tried to introduce me, we also established a capacity building arm known as the Nigerian Institute of Infrastructure and Public-Private Partnership. She has already talked about this, so I wouldn't want to go discussing them in full details. Just that any aspect of public-private partnership or an infrastructure development course we are available to deliver. We're also into APMG, which certifies PPP professionals. Last year, ICRC recorded 13 professionals. So how will I call it? The engine house of PPPs in Nigeria is domiciled in ICRC for now. We are doing MBA in PPP, which is the first in Africa, and we have started a PhD program as well in PPPs. You know that we have just one economy in Nigeria, even though we have 36 states. So ICRC coordinates the activities of the Nigeria Public-Private Partnership Network, though under the chairmanship of the Nigerian Governorship Forum, and is for the heads of PPPs nationwide at the state level, so that we can always interact and share knowledge. So all the states that have access to mining, and when they want to get into PPPs, we will be available to guide them. We have even provided a template PPP law for states that don't have PPP laws, as well as a template PPP policy. Same way we coordinate activities of PPPs at the federal level at every MDA, and they meet quarterly. Now, this is a typical PPP process. So if we're looking at getting into mining PPP, this is an SPV, excuse me, special purpose vehicle, which is the private sector, trying to get into a PPP arrangement. There will need to be an agreement, sign agreement with the granting agency of government. And then we talked about financing, getting equity investors, getting lenders or guarantors or insurance. And then they deliver the service of the mining, and depending on the arrangement they have in the contract, they make their revenue, and from it, the business goes on. And this is the life cycle of public-private partnership in Nigeria. 3 key phases: to develop the project to the point of saying it is bankable enough for private sector to come and invest, because private sector will not invest in a project that is not bankable. And you end up with a document we call outline business case, of which I gave a total of 199 that were given compliance certificates since we established as a commission. And then the private sector is engaged through the procurement process. One of the key interesting things about PPPs in Nigeria is that all PPPs must be approved by the Federal Executive Council. That's what the law says for now. So at the procurement phase, the private sector is selected or procured. There's a negotiation process, and then the preferred bidder. A full business case showing the outline business case and the negotiation process with the bidding program will be packaged with agreements, and this goes to FEC. And then when the agreement is signed, the solicited process in PPPs, you identify the project, you identify the location, and then the agency of government engages ICRC before they can commence anything. And good news is that our DG even had a meeting with the Honorable Minister of Solid Minerals recently, and we had an eye to this discourse. Very soon, something could be happening in this sector on PPPs. But the law also requires that we engage Federal Ministry of Finance to structure financing, because some projects may require federal government intervention, and it's only the Federal Ministry of Finance that is required to intervene, or things that had to do with contingent liabilities or viability gap funding. Then with the support of transaction advisors, they go ahead to prepare the outline business case. They go ahead to, we review it and issue certificates. And once it's certified, like I said before, so we go through that process to get the private sector, get FEC approval, and then PPP contract is signed. We take custody as required by the law, and then we get to financial close, supporting the private sector. Financial close is when they're able to draw down the financing to start the project. And then regular joint inspections are conducted between ICRC and the government agency to ensure that the project is executed as written in the contract. Okay, so why I had to put this is because I made a suggestion on unsolicited this is a solicited process. Unsolicited process is whereby the private, let me go back some slides now. Instead of government doing the program of making the project bankable, private sector could, on their own, prepare this outline business case and submit to government. And then, so women in mining can get into the business of getting this done, submitting this outline business case to government, and then showing that their project is bankable enough. Government buys into it and then comes to ICRC and will provide the necessary regulatory guidance, and the project is done. So in proposed way forward, I made this following recommendations: that practicing members of WIMTI or women should set up themselves as a cooperative society. This cooperative society should obtain necessary registration approvals as a legal entity. This cooperative society should identify artisanal small-scale projects they can execute, especially low-hanging fruit projects. Then this should be followed by developing the necessary outline business case, OBC. This OBC should be submitted to the Ministry of Solid Minerals, who will in turn review it for completeness, accept to own it because it is the only government agency that submits the project to ICRC. And then they submit them to us as an unsolicited PPP proposal. That's why I had to go back to explain that unsolicited proposal. ICRC will now provide necessary guidance that will lead the project to financial close. However, this should be undertaken with adequate knowledge and guidance of the relevant sector regulator. I had to guide myself with the timing I was given. So I believe that we have done 45 minutes, and I want to say thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Doctor. We are extremely very grateful. And I sincerely want to use this opportunity to say, I hope you are hearing me, sir. Hello?
I'm hearing you. I had to mute.
Yes,
I muted myself. I've muted it now. How do you, madam?
Okay. I want to really say thank you, sir, and then to the participants today. Today is a very unique time in all the series of lectures we've been having, because we align this lecture in line with what is currently happening in Nigeria. The risk on capital is extremely high. And I wonder if any investor will be interested in Nigeria now, based on what's the tumbling rate of our dollar, the exchange rates. So we thought of it that, see, we have an institution, and I appreciate you for talking extensively about my time in ICRC. We have an institution that can be supportive if we understand the knowledge. And I challenge every woman who has a license or who wants to do one thing or the other as a proper cooperative under Women in Mining, or even in other sister organizations, man, like I hope.
Okay. I'm guessing the president is having some network issues. I reckon she will join us as soon as she can. Thank you so much, Dr. Amanze, for that wonderful presentation. The floor is open for questions, comments, and reactions in general. Okay, I think she's back. Okay, not yet. Thank you so much once again, sir. Questions, comments, and reactions can be dropped in the chat box, and they will be attended to upon conclusion of the second presentation. We are trying to work with time at today's session, so please kindly bear with us as we proceed. Without further ado, we'll proceed to the second speaker of the day. Here with me, I have Hauwa Dako Mohammed. Hauwa Dako Mohammed is currently the Special Advisor to the Governor of Niger State on Social Investment Programs, also known as SIP. She is an intelligent, execution-focused, sustainable development goals enthusiast with experience working in both governmental and non-governmental organizations. Her notable professional history embodies serving as the managing consultant at HBG Tracon Limited, as well as founding the Pro Agro Systems, and also assuming the role of the Chief Operating Officer in the endeavor to eradicate hunger and malnutrition with the Dako Kontangaro Development Foundation. Demonstrating robust managerial skills and outstanding leadership qualities, she exhibits profound expertise in business operations, management, finance, and economic development. Complementing her extensive experience is a solid educational foundation, holding a bachelor's degree in economics, a master's in financial economics, and a postgraduate diploma in management. Hajia Hauwa Dako Mohammed, it's a privilege to host you at this month's edition of WIMTI Training Institute. Without further ado, I hand over the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I really appreciate, though I'm actually feeling over the weather today, not feeling too good, but I had to grace this opportunity given to me to come and speak to every one of you. Good evening, everyone, and well done, Doctor. Your presentation was super. I was being able to learn a few things from you. And I was really excited. You were citing my state, Niger State, as an example. I heard New Busa, I heard Kaenji, all those places and everything, interestingly. Very, very, very interesting. And thank you very much, the President CEO, Women in Mining. Appreciate for having me today. I would love to share my slides, though my own slides will be a little bit brief. I actually thought it's for 22nd, not today, so I had to put in something very fast. So you have to bear with me. Thank you. Let me share the slide. Okay, my topic today is building supply chains in natural resources. I'm actually going to speak a little bit of the mining sector, but like I'm more professional in the agro commodities. But nevertheless, meeting the president in Houston, she has actually initiated me to be part of the Women in Mining organization and everything. In the realm of economic development, now to establish a robust supply chain for natural resources is very important for driving growth and fostering sustainability. This is particularly true for mineral and agro resource commodities, where efficient supply chains can unlock vast potential and pave the way for prosperity, just like the fewer challenges we're having, especially in the food security aspect of everything. Even the war between Russia and Ukraine, the Gaza war, Yemen, all and around, it's actually affecting some of our supply chain around the world globally. Well, understanding of the supply chain, the major components to look at are the raw material flow. While supply chains involve sourcing, processing, and delivering raw materials to end consumers, it encompasses activities like extraction, refining, transportation, and distribution. The mining, like looking at the mining aspect of it, it starts from the mine site, processing plants, transportation enterprise such as trucks, railways, shipment companies, and to the end users. While optimizing the goals is to ensure a smooth flow of resources from the origin to the market, optimizing efficiency and minimizing waste and maximizing value creation and at each of the stage of the supply chain. And it has to be sustainably focused. Its emphasis is also put on adopting sustainable practices to ensure minimal environmental impact. Just like the examples that Doctor was giving, Doctor has actually taken us through all the processes Mine is just to highlight the little and add more little to my topic and everything. You know, he explained how the processes are, how the artisan miners mine, you know, with lack of professionalism and everything, how everything is not coordinated, you know, and how a lot of things, you know, are happening within the environment, etc. Significance in mineral resources. We have the mineral wealth financing. Building robust supply chains is essential for harnessing the economic benefits of mining activities. You know, with a robust supply chain. And what is the supply chain? Transportation, infrastructure, down to the going through the process of the value chain down to the end user. The refining processes, it involves not only extracting the ore from the mines, but also refining it into usable metal and then transporting the product to the consumers. Industrialization impacts. Streaming the processes can drive industrialization, create jobs, and spur economic growth. So supply chain is really critical in terms of economic development. Hello, are you with me? Hello?
Yes, we are.
Continue.
Okay. Sorry, because, okay.
We're here, continue.
Okay, here.
Join me.
Okay. Sorry, I just missed, okay. So now going back to emphasis on agro resources and commodities, I've shed a little light on mining, though Doctor has actually taken us through all the processes, etc. Now we're to focus more on the value chain, etc. So now emphasis on agro resources commodities. To be honest, looking at Nigeria today, we're having a lot of challenges. Food insecurity is affecting a lot of people. Riot from one place to another. Part of the presentation we channels, or part of the presentation that the president made about increase in high rate of exchange rate, to be honest, has led to a lot of things. We're in their need to sit and look inwardly and see how a lot of things will be possible. I met someone that said, we're rich in Nigeria. Why should we go out there to? We should look inward. You know, we should look inward and enhance the natural resources we have within ourselves. Taking Niger State as an example, I actually work with the government of Niger State, and we're pushing so hard to have the agricultural revolution. We're changing the mindsets of so many youth in Niger State to like take agribusiness as a means and sense of employment, etc. You know, so food security, efficient supply chains play a pivotal role in ensuring food security and promoting agricultural livelihoods. With proper supply chain, with efficient supply chain, right from the farm to the end user, it actually plays a very vital role in promoting agricultural livelihoods. So the agricultural potential we have, optimizing supply chain processes, helps countries capitalize on their agricultural potential and enhance their global competitiveness. Just like what is happening in Russia and Ukraine, I still think Russia or Ukraine is the largest supplier of wheat to the world, to the other side of the world and everything. You know, these are things that we actually need to look at in Nigeria as a country and see what are our comparative advantage. As we always sing or loud it out, especially we in Niger State that have the largest landmass, we say that we can feed Africa, we can even feed the world. I shall think it's high time we just come back all together, look inward and look at our supply chain and see how we can enhance it. Just a little story. I attended the farm show in Philadelphia, January 13th, you know.
Hajia, you have mistakenly muted yourself. We're not hearing you again. Unmute your system. Hajia, you mistakenly muted your system. Admin, kindly unmute her. We're not hearing her.
Okay. Okay, are you with me now? Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
we can.
Yes, I can.
Okay. So agriculture, emphasis on agri resources and commodities, agricultural potential, optimizing supply chain processes, helps countries capitalize on their agricultural potential and enhance their global competitiveness. Just like Ukraine, because of the war in Ukraine, is the largest country, is the country that provide the largest supply of wheat and everything. And because of the war, everything became so expensive, wheat became so expensive, and there was scarcity of wheat and everything. Global market presence, enhancing the competitiveness of agro products in the global marketplace is a crucial outcome for efficient supply chains. Key consideration in supply chain management. Logistical constraint, managing logistical challenges while ensuring smooth flow of resources is one of our key consideration. You know, logistics is really critical. Our ports needs to be effective, efficient, you know, and being readily available at all times to be able to transport most of the agro commodities or whatever commodities that we need to send out. While the regulatory hurdles, as Dr. mentioned during his presentation, regulatory hurdles are part of the challenges, you know, that hinders supply chain processes and everything. Adhering to diverse regulations while streaming the supply chain processes. Technology adoption, exploring technological solution for optimizing supply chain efficiency. Challenges and opportunities in supply chains include infrastructure deficiency, addressing infrastructure gaps to ensure seamless supply chain operation. Once we're being able to address our infrastructure gaps, to be honest, supply chain will be abundant and will meet the end users but which is some of the challenges we're having in Nigeria, because most of the ships comes in or most of the cargo planes come in and they go out empty. So these are one of the critical areas that we need to look out and enhance how we can solve that critical challenge. Capacity building, investing in workforce capability for effective supply chain management is really critical. So we need a lot of capacity building, etc., to enhance the supply chain. Environmental sustainability, integrating sustainable practices to minimize environmental impact. It's really key. Empowering through collaboration. In terms of supply chain, just like in most of the agro commodities, there are some of the customers that actually come into a community, empower them, like the agro processes, empower them, collaborate with them, and provide the market access. These are also ways in which we can have more standardized products to be supplied out there. So collaboration is very critical, innovation is critical, and efficiency. Empowering through collaboration, innovation for supply chain efficiency, thereby driving economic growth and sustainability. Conclusion, paving the way for inclusive growth. Building supply chains in natural resources is essential for achieving sustainable economic development and inclusive growth by investing in infrastructure, enhancing regulatory framework, fostering innovation, and promoting collaboration. Countries can unlock the full potential of their natural resources and pave the way for prosperity. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that wonderful presentation. Yeah. Yes. I think we can unanimously agree that the key word for today is collaboration. You emphasize the need for collaboration to strengthen the supply chains present in the mining sector. And the first presenter also emphasized the need for collaboration in terms of public and private partnerships. Thank you so much. I guess I speak for everyone when we say you did justice to that presentation. Currently, the floor is open.
1 second, please. 1 second, please. Thank you, Hajia, for this wonderful opportunity and the presentation. And I'm sure we will get back to you because we purposely brought this up because of collaboration. Agric and mining go hand in hand. And I remember that in the conference where we met, somebody talked about the $32 billion in Zobo alone.
Yes.
So
yes.
what stops women, you understand, for going for low-hanging fruits?
Yeah.
So that's a question I will pose today, and then we will follow up. Once again, I want to say thank you, my sister, and stay strong. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I have a question that was sent to me directly by Mr. Ayomide James. Mr. Ayomide James, please, if you could kindly send the question to the group chat for everyone to properly appreciate the question. However, I will just read it out from here. He is saying that what mechanisms are in place to ensure transparency and accountability throughout the duration of the public-private partnership? I'm guessing that question is directed to Dr. Amanze Okere. Dr. Amanze Okere, are you with us?
Thank you for coming to join us at the
Yes, I'm here. I'm here with you. Thank you. Can I answer right away, or should I wait for?
Yes, sir. I believe you can proceed.
What measures have been put in place? Like I talked about the frameworks for public-private partnerships in Nigeria. It is the framework without which no investor will invest in your client. So the framework for PPPs are in place for confidence for investors to ensure that, I've read it out, that when they invest in their businesses, the law allows them to recover their investments when they make profit. And then the law also allows, in fact, what happens is that the ICRC, once we have a contract under our custody, we become non-partisan. We don't support government, we don't support private sector. We interpret any contract that is signed the way it was signed. So we make sure that government does not use private sector and private sector does not use government, because we are trying to make sure that investment continues to flow in the country. And one of the things we do is, it's not just enough to sign a contract. That is actually the beginning of the journey. Remember, it's a partnership, just like a marriage. The day of the wedding is not the day the marriage ends. You could have 150-year marriage running. So also we have PPPs or concessions over 50 years. So they have to be monitored, they have to be managed for as long as the PPP contract subsists until the time it ends. And then there's even a mechanism in place to ensure that it is ended smoothly, with both parties ending in relationships that are cordial. So we have PPPs that we have signed in 2005 for 20 years. Okay, the 15 years on, we have renewed them without problems. And that mechanism is still in place, giving confidence to investors, and they continue to come. I don't know whether there's anything to add, but I think that's the answer. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. The floor is still open for further reactions to that question. Floor is still open for further reactions to that question.
Okay, let me answer the question from CG Wuraola.
Okay.
How will the PPP contribute to the broader socio-economic development goals of a region or a country? In Nigeria, I'll give you an example of what's happening now. Nigeria has a document we call, a plan, not a document actually, it's a plan, Midterm National Development Plan, that says that Nigeria needs to spend 341 trillion naira over 5 years from 2021 to 2025 to meet up with the necessary requirements in capital expenditure. But that document says that 85% of this has to come from private sector. That's about 299 trillion naira. What it means is that you need to have a mechanism in place to manage this relationship, which is what ICRC provides. And without infrastructure, you cannot have development, because infrastructure drives other services. Infrastructure drives manufacturing. Infrastructure drives even the mining. If you don't have mining, like Hajia just said, you don't have access to the sites where you need to mine, excuse me, then you have a challenge. So government is also interested in the welfare of the citizenry. So you need infrastructure to drive education, to drive medical section like the health. You need infrastructure to drive transportation, aviation, rail, water system, you name them. So socioeconomic development cannot happen without infrastructure. And that is what PPPs do, to see how they can develop them and contribute to that for a country. And we are not the first. You remember in Britain, when Margaret Thatcher took over as a woman, like, I'm not a woman, so I won't say one of us, but so I wouldn't say it's derogatory to say one of the women. But when Margaret Thatcher came up, it was PPP she used to turn around the British economy. If you remember what people used to call Thatchernomics, that was what she did. It was just PPP. So it's not just that it happened in UK. It's happening in America, it's happening everywhere in the world, and we cannot be left out because government resources are not increasing. Rather, government resources are depleting on a daily basis, and you see it every year. Even in the national budget, you see that most times the deficits are huge. The government has little to invest in terms of infrastructure that will drive the economy. Thank you. Then the next question that just came up now, how is PPP related to government replacing tax in form of money that's supposed to be paid by private organization by project? Like I said, government does not have the resources to meet the huge demands. So what government is doing is, like, I know where you're getting to the tax credit facility. The taxes that those agencies do, big employers of labor are supposed to pay, then they use it to develop infrastructure, especially in their own area. But it's not as if they are left alone to do whatever they want. Government puts in a regulatory mechanism in place so that the figure that is quoted is actually guided. And there's a financial model, there's a contract that governs actually what is put there, what the private sector has deployed in terms of tax incentive to be able to invest. But it's not on every case. I think the popular area in the sector that is happening now is in the road sector, where the Dangotes, MTNs, and a few others are using tax credits. A tax equivalent of what they are supposed to pay to government is deployed to provide infrastructure. And it's a win-win situation. All we need to know is to collaborate. That's why Hauwa was talking about collaboration. Collaborating with the private sector is not a problem. It's just that the framework needs to be in place so that no party cheats the other. And that's what we are trying to achieve through ICRC. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It is indeed a win-win situation. I actually have a question, and I would like to direct it to Hauwa Dako Mohammed. She spoke about the terms of strengthening the supply chains with a focus on the Nigerian mineral sector and agroeconomics as well. So I have a question. What are the challenges that Nigeria faces in terms of supply chain? And can you provide us with some sort of practical roadmap to tackling these challenges?
Hello all. Sorry, I'm having a little bit challenge with my network over here.
Okay.
Logistics. Logistics, it's one key challenge. Let me just give an example of me as a farmer before relocating back to Niger State. I farmed last year. I'm into roots and tubers. So I actually farmed orange flesh sweet potatoes, more than 5 hectares. You know, I had a lot of tubers, but because I'm no longer in that system at the moment, I had to, and my factory is not in Nasarawa State. I'm using a factory in Osun State. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes,
so I have a factory. The factory I normally use in processing, that's the value chain of that particular produce, is in Osun State. After doing my plus and minus, because of the increase, removal of the fuel subsidy and the increase in the fuel and everything, to be honest, I just had to sell my produce at a loss, because the cost of transporting my produce to Osun State from Nasarawa State for production, it's enormous. I don't think after producing it, that's going to be a profit. I'd rather sell them at that particular point at a loss than to take them to Osun State and process it. So these are the one key areas. And let's look at most of the cargo coming into the country, because I know in value chain, in supply chain, a major challenge is infrastructure. That's what affects all that we do. A major challenge is infrastructure. Taking one commodity from one place to another. Like in Nigeria, for example, we don't have the train system. Train is another way of transporting our produce from the north to the south at a very, very reasonable cost and amount. But that infrastructure, it's not available. We have to use the truck, which with the increase in diesel prices and fuel, it's really, really, really a challenge. So in the process of the supply chain, okay, let me give an example. I happened to attend a farm show in Philadelphia. We went to the port in Philadelphia. To be honest, they had automated system of tracking all their trucks coming in and out. A truck that brings in a container takes only 30 minutes for it to come in, to be checked in, and to be offloaded. That's why I emphasize more on innovation. We have to be creative. And they told me, I learned that during COVID, they were the port that was never congested, because everything in there uses AI and is automated. So in supply chain, one key area that we have to look at that is really, really critical is logistics. Infrastructure is really critical. And it's what we have to look at and look for a way that we can enhance these processes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I believe you have actually done justice to that question. I think logistics is something every person, down to the small business owner, can agree that has been a major issue here in Nigeria. We actually have another question that was sent directly. It's similar to mine. However, it lays a special emphasis. So permit me to read the question out. It's from Suleiman Liman, and he says, Hajia, thank you for the wonderful presentation. Personally, I have learned a lot and would appreciate it if you provide practical solutions to some of these challenges, with a reference to the practical developments taking place in Niger State, especially in agriculture and mining.
Okay, my specialty mostly, Suleiman, is in agriculture. And I know in Niger State specifically, where we want to change the narrative, we're actually partnering. That's where PPP came in. Doctor has really emphasized public-private partnership. And I should think it's just the way forward in governance. As the saying says, they always say, government has no business with business. Government only provide the enabling environment, but with JVs, with PPP, etc., it will enhance more productivity. And at the end of the day, I shall think we'll be able to measure progress, and even the funding involved in all that. There will be discipline in all that we do. So in Niger State lately or presently, we're actually looking at the dry season farming. And I know we've started going around doing the advocacy, getting land. We have gotten about more than 60,000 hectares in about 6 local governments, and it's in the process of being cleared. What we intend to do is a private-public partnership, and some of the lands are being leased. We have a JV company that we're partnering with, which is the Niger Foods Limited. So they're providing some of the funding, and because for sustainability, as I say, government doesn't do business. It's a private business kind of thing. because so that now with the partnering with the Farmers Association, AFAN, Farmers Association of Nigeria, for us to be able to scale and take the processes onto the next level. And there are rooms and avenue for, I will go back to it again because I shall think Doctor has said it all, private-public partnership, for us to come together, to work together, and to be able to meet up the aims and objectives of the green revolution that the state has put into place.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I must commend the work that is being done currently in Niger State. It's a wonderful work indeed. Once you said 60 hectares.
60,000, 10, 20, 30, 40. And to be honest, our target is up to 250,000. But this is just a pilot stage.
Wow. That's great. That's great. I must really commend that work.
We're identifying commodities that we have comparative advantage over, such as rice, because Niger State is the largest state in Nigeria, sitting on about 76,600 and something square mass.
Thank you so much for that, Mark. Before we proceed, I see a question has been dropped as well, but I would just like to acknowledge the presence of some of our participants who have been with us and also invite them to share their experience, to share their wide experience in the topic being discussed. I would like to recognize the presence of Madam Olushola Olaniyi. I would like to recognize the presence of Madam Michelle. I'd like to recognize the presence of Madam Esther Chinweba. It's a pleasure to have each and every single one of you here with us. You've been with us from day one, and we really do appreciate. Take note, the floor is open. Should you have reflections and comments, and should you want to share with us from your in-depth experience, kindly indicate by clicking the raising hand emoji, and you will be asked to unmute. Thank you so much. So we have a question from a Miss Precious, and she is saying, how can stakeholders collaborate to improve efficiency and transparency in natural resource supply chains? I'm guessing that question is directed to Hajia Hauwa. Hajia Hauwa, the floor is yours.
Sorry, please, can you come back again? Go back to the question again.
Okay, the question it's from a Miss Precious, and she's saying, how can stakeholders collaborate to improve efficiency and transparency in natural resource supply chains?
Okay. How can they collaborate? By identifying the partners that they want to collaborate with. Once you identify the partners and the key vision and mission and objectives as aligned to what you would offer, you know, it's one area for collaboration and everything. It based on, I don't know which of the natural, is it into, are you going for agribusiness? Are you going for mineral resources, etc.? The first point of wherever is identifying your partner. Once you can identify your partner, key into their vision, mission, and their objectives. And by that, there'll be room for collaboration.
Oh, thank you so much. Once you identify your partner, you key into their vision. That is a key takeaway for me. We have another comment, actually, from a Ms. Sidikat Salau, and she is saying that we need to apply these procedures to the mining sector. Let's make our cooperative a prototype project. Thank you, Madam Hauwa Dako, for this great, insightful presentation.
Thank you.
Yes, so the floor is still open for questions, comments, and reactions. In the absence of that, I would like to welcome the first speaker, Dr. Amanze Okere, for his closing remarks.
Thank you once again. It's been a pleasure to be here. Anything we can do together to make Nigeria move forward infrastructure-wise, the framework is there with ICRC. We want to see the mineral sector also up and running in development because we have so many of them in Nigeria and we need them. not just for the fun of having them. They also create jobs and employment for the youth. They also bring the necessary foreign reserves, that is foreign revenue for us. We need both the dollar and the pound as early as yesterday in Nigeria. And also it's going to be better for us. So it's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you once again and God bless.
Thank you so much, sir. I would also like to invite Hauwa Dako Mohammed for her closing remarks. I would like to invite.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Sorry, as I said, I've been having little issue with my network. I'm so sorry. Today has been actually a very tedious and kind of hectic day for me. I had to, and I didn't know it was today. I was supposed to present. I assumed it was 22nd until yesterday when I was told. So I had to put in everything very quickly. But as Dr. said, and we're open for collaborations. Our doors are open for collaborations, for partnership. We just identify our areas of interest from both partners and parties and everything. So thank you very much for having me today. I really appreciate it. And do have a nice day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a comment. We have a comment here. We also have Dr. Salau with us. I'm guessing she would like to also make one or two comments before we close. Now the floor is yours.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, the two speakers, for this insightful entrepreneurship presentation. I think from the first presenter to the last, there are so many things we have to integrate into the mining sector for it to become viable. And as the first speaker have said, there are so many job creation along the mineral value chain, from exploration, exportation, value addition, beneficiation, and the marketing. In lieu of this, I wish we could make a prototype project out of this presentation. It's worthwhile to do that. And I can say that behind the door, when Nigeria will start working on that, so that by the next year, we can bring up something to present through data acquisition to see that, yes, this is achievable even in the mining sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Women in mining in Nigeria will definitely take that up, because as we know, that is a very salient issue for the development of the sector as it is today. Thank you so much for that wonderful contribution. We have a message. However, she did not send it to the direct platform. She sent it directly to the host. We have a comment from Madam Olushola Olani. She says, thank you, everyone. My concern in all these wonderful presentations is security. So I would like to throw this question to both speakers for their comments. She is asking, in my own words, where does security come into play in all this, in terms of its impact, in terms of the challenges it poses to the sector, and how to address these challenges?
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that again. I think security is now everybody's business. We are kind of under siege in Nigeria, but like some issues, it has come, and we believe it will go one day. The only thing we do is to encourage our security agencies to up their game, look for better efficiencies, look for improved efficiencies, innovations in security. And you could believe me that ICRC as well is partnering with Nigerian police and other security agencies to improve on their systems. which I believe that the more they improve, the more they're able to be on top of their game. But I wouldn't want to buy over their job because they still need to do their job. Mine is to do public-private partnership to develop Nigeria's infrastructure. And you can't do it without security being available for private sector to invest. So as partners, we are always working with them, looking for ways to improve the security. And our own is to encourage them to do that. And that's the prayer of every Nigerian, because once we are able to sleep peacefully and investors can come in and invest safely, Nigeria will be a better place for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. As you stated, the issue of security currently in Nigeria, it's actually very alarming. And it is one of the major deterrents to public and private partnerships, as well as a deterrent to investors in the sector.
No, so I didn't use the word deterrent. People are still investing, but the tempo is not as much as expected. Because when you use the word deterrent, it's as if everybody's running away. Investors are still here. Nigeria remains the investment destination in Africa. Believe me.
That's just it. Yeah.
That's true. That is true. We see the Chinese every day.
That's just it.
Thank you so much for that. So I do not see further comments. I do not see further reflections. No hands are raised. On that note, I would like to thank each and every single one of you for the privilege of hosting you at this month's edition of Women in Mining Training Institute. As we all know, the Women in Mining Training Institute is held on the third Thursday of every month.
It's not my bag you're pushing, though.
It is held on the third Thursday of every month. That is to say, by next month, we will gather here again to engage in a very insightful deliberation. And just as we have gotten key takeaways, just we have gotten the assignment from Dr. Sidikat Salau to engage in a prototype with Dr. Amanze Okere. We are sure that as we proceed with this Women in Mining Training Institute, novel ideas, innovations will be birthed that will definitely mark history and cause the ultimate development of the solid mineral sector. I really appreciate everyone. And on behalf of the President of Women in Mining in Nigeria, Engineer Janet Adeyemi, who is unavoidably absent at today's edition, as we all know, she tried her possible best to join, even whilst on the road. She tried to use her phone to join, but I'm sure the network cut her off. So on behalf of her, I would like to extend a warm thank you to each and every single one. And I wish you all a wonderful weekend. Goodbye from Women in Mining till next month.